Good day everyone, I am SIR JERIAH again. Welcome to another episode of our learning. For today's lessons, so we are going to discuss the learning theories and specifically understanding how students learn. As future teachers, one of the most important things we need to understand is how students learn, no? Kung paano nga ba natututo yung mga estudyante. So because once we know how learning happens, makakapili tayo ng tamang teaching strategies para maging effective ang ating pagtuturo. Without further ado, so let's begin. No, first for our learning objectives. We have here our learning objectives. At the end of these lessons, you should be able to define the learning theories, identify the major learning theories, explain the principle of each learning theories, and compare the different learning theories. And lastly, apply learning theories in classroom situation. I have here a question. No? Before discussing theories themselves, let me ask you a few questions. No? Have you ever wondered why some students learn very quickly while others need more time? And why do students who become motivated after receiving praise while others are motivated through challenges? So the answer is very simple, no? Every learner is different. Okay? Iba-iba po yung mga learners natin. Iba-iba po ang klase ng mga estudyante. So that's why we will tackle the learning theory. Because of these differences, educators develop the different learning theories to explain how learning happens. Paano nga ba nangyayari yung pagkatuto, no? So understanding this theory helps teachers become more effective inside the classroom. Kung ikaw yung teacher, or effective yung klase mo kung alam mo kung anong klase ng mga estudyante ang meron ka. Now, what is learning theory? Ano nga ba ang learning theory? So learning theory is simply an explanation of how people learn. Okay? It is an explanation kung paano nga ba natututo yung tao. Okay? So it explains how learners acquire knowledge, develop skills, change attitude, and improves behavior through learning. So as a teachers, learning theories guides us in choosing the most appropriate teaching methods. So in other words, these theories help us answer the questions, how can I teach my students more effectively? Okay? So this theories leads us kung paano nga ba natin tuturuan yung mga estudyante natin in effective way. Okay? Now, we have also here, why are learning theories important? Bakit nga ba napaka-importante ng learning theories? Okay? First, they help us understand how students learn. So it helps teachers, matulungan yung teachers kung paano nga ba natututo yung isang estudyante. Ano yung paraan para siya matuto, no? So, yun. And second, they improve. So that this theories, they improve our teaching strategies as a teacher. No, it improves our teaching strategies because we can choose. We can choose activities that match the learner's needs. Hindi naman kasi po pwede na gawa lang tayo ng mga activities na yung ibang estudyante ay hindi sila nakaka-relate nung activity na ginawa natin. Kasi iba-iba nga po yung mga estudyante. Okay, and third, we have here the increase. Because of these theories, the increase students' engagement. Because why? Because students become more active during lessons. Why? Because yung strategy na ginawa mo o yung ginawa mo sa klase mo, lahat ng mga estudyante is nakaka-engage. Okay, so that's why it increased the students' engagement. So it makes learning more meaningful, interactive, and student-centered. Fourth, they help us create meaningful learning experience. Why? Because instead of simply memorizing it. So it helps teachers design activities that connects with learners' needs and experience. And lastly, this learning theories, it is important because they improve students' academic performance. Because learning become more effective. So it supports better understanding and improves overall learning outcomes. Okay? That's why it is very important, kaya napakahalaga ng learning theories. Kasi dito mo malalaman kung ano-anong klaseng mga estudyanteng meron ka. At paano mo gagawin or ano yung mga strategies na gagawin mo para lahat ng mga estudyante mo ma-engage sila sa yung klase. Okay? So yun. Now, we have here the major learning theories. So we have there are many learning theories, but today we will focus on the 5 major learning theories. Okay, there is a lot of learning theories, but we will just focus on this 5 learning theories. These are behaviorism. Okay, behaviorism, learning occurs through stimulus and response. So later on we will discuss this further. We have also the cognitivism, constructivism, social learning theory, and humanism. So these are the major learning theories. Our first learning theory is behaviorism. This theory was developed by Aban Pavlov, John B. Watson, and B.F. Skinner. So behaviorism believes that learning happens through stimulus and response. Okay, behaviorism emphasizes that learning is a result of changes in observable behavior. Okay? So the core principle, okay, the core principle is that learning occurs through the connection of the stimulus and response. We have here the example. Imagine a teacher gives an activity or task. So the activity is what we call the stimulus or the cause. So ano yung ginawa ni teacher? Nagbigay siya ng activity sa kanyang estudyante or sa estudyante. And then the students completes the activity correctly, or the students completes the task, and that's the response or the effect. Now, then after na complete ng estudyante yung task na binigay ni teacher, which is the stimulus, and the response is kung yung tapos na ni students yung task, and then the teacher praises or rewards the students. No, the teachers give praise or rewards sa estudyante. Yun yung tinatawag na reinforcement. Okay, because of the reward, the students becomes motivated to repeat the same good behavior. Alala mo yung mga preschool students, no? Okay, meron sila mga star. So pag bigyan mo lang sila ng mga star, so namomotivate sila. Kasi binigyan mo sila ng task, tapos natapos nila yung task, tapos perfect yung task nila, tapos nilagyan mo sila ng star. So namomotivate sila na mas gagawin pa nilang yung the best nila. So this is called what we call positive reinforcement. Okay? So that is why teachers often use praise, rewards, repetition, and reinforcement inside the classroom. Okay? So maliwanag na. So teachers are reinforcement, rewards, repetition, and etc. And we have here behavior is learned and repeated when it is reinforced. So you as a teacher, pag once na yung estudyante mo nakasagot sa task na you have to praise them. Okay, very good class. Diba? Para ma-motivate sila. Next, we have the cognitivism. Okay, the cognitivism. So the main proponents are si Jean Piaget and si Jerome Bruner. Okay, so unlike behaviorism, cognitivism focuses on mental processes. Okay, or it focuses on what happens inside the learner's mind. Ano yung nangyayari sa loob ng utak ng isang estudyante? Ano yung iniisip ng estudyante? Okay? Now, it emphasizes the mental processes like thinking, remembering, understanding, and problem solving. For example, when students learn a new lessons, they do not simply memorize it. Instead, what they do, ano yung ginawa nila, they connect it with what they already know. Okay? So this is called connecting new knowledge with a prior knowledge. So that is why teachers encourage activities that develop critical thinking, concept mapping, and problem solving. Kasi may mga ganitong mga estudyante talaga na meron na silang natutunan nung una pa, tapos once meron silang na-learn that day na connect dun sa mga tinatawag natin na prior knowledge nila. So yun yung tawag natin doon. Ang tawag natin doon is connecting new knowledge with a prior knowledge. So learning is an active process where the mind organizes, stores, and uses information. Okay? So this the second theory. Next theory, we have the Constructivism. So the main proponents of the Constructivism is si John Piaget and si Vygotsky. Okay? So, the Constructivism believes that students the students build their own knowledge through experience and interaction. So, naniniwala sila na nabibuild yung knowledge ng isang estudyante kung yung mga estudyante they interact or na-experience nila mismo sa kanilang sarili yung mga bagay na ginagawa nila. Diba? Okay, so instead of simply listening to lectures, students learn better when they actively participate. Okay, for example, in this slide, so the students are working together, no? Okay, kita niyo sa slide. The students are working together, sharing ideas, discussing, researching, and solving problem. So the teachers act as a facilitator rather than simply giving all the answers. And also, this is why inquiry-based learning, collaborative learning, and hands-on activities are commonly used in Constructivism. Why? Because in Constructivism, yung mga estudyante na mismo, yung mag-discover, okay? They will discover that knowledge. Okay, so learners build their own understanding. So as a teacher in this theory, ito na Constructivism, you are a facilitator. So hindi kayo magbigay ng answers agad-agad or mga ano. You're just a facilitator. You are going to facilitate, guide them. Okay? Students learn best when they are active participants in building their own knowledge. Next, we have also the social learning theory. So the main proponent, this one is si Albert Bandura. So yung daddy natin. Okay, according to Albert, people learn by observing others. So may mga estudyante din ganito, no? So they learn by observing others. Students watch how teachers and classmates behave. No? So this is a type of the students na tinitingnan nila kung paano nag-behave yung mga classmates nila, paano yung teacher nila nagturo, paano yung ginagawa nila, di ba? This kind of ng mga estudyante, no? So then they imitate those positive behaviors. So yung mga positive behaviors in-imitate nila. And for example, when teachers demonstrate respect, responsibility, and teamwork, students are likely to copy those behavior. Di ba? Minsan, bakit ka nagti-teacher? Dahil na-inspired po ako ng teacher ko nung una kasi mabait po siya, magaling po siya magturo. Okay, yun. Yung mga klase ng mga estudyante na inspired, na in-imitate nila kung ano yung nakikita nila na behavior na pinapakita ng isang estudyante or ng isang guro. Okay? Now, that is why, no? Teacher should always, or dapat yung teacher, palagi silang good role model. So sa teacher, you have to be a good role model. And maliban na din sa teacher, as a student, then you have to be a good role model then, no? So remember that students learn not only from what the teachers say, but also from what the teachers do. Okay? Hindi lang sila natuto kung ano yung sinabi ng isang guro, kundi natuto din sila kung ano yung ginawa ng guro. Okay? Higit sabi ni Albert Bandura that we learn not just from experience, but from watching others. And which is true, no? Ang iba naman, pakialamay na lang yun sa buhay nila. Ito kasi, positive to, good to nga bagay, yung parang in-imitate mo kung ano yung good behavior ng isang teacher, ng isang tao. So, iba na din yung mga watcher lang sa buhay mo, tapos sinisiraan ka, iba yun. Okay? Marites yan. So, yun. So, how social learning works? We have the attention. So, the learners pays attention to the model. So, kung nag-pay attention yung teacher. And then, after that retention, the learners remember what was observed. So, kung na-obserbahan ng estudyante mong mabait kang teacher, then, yun yung ma-remember niya na mabait ka. And then, reproduction, the learners imitates the behavior. So, dahil nakita niya na mabait ka, tapos na-remember niya yung na ikaw, nasa teacher mabait ka, then ginawa niya, naging mabait din siya. Okay? And the learners is motivated by the result or rewards. Okay? Next, we have also here the humanism. Okay? So, when we say humanism, first, the proponents of this humanism are Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers. Okay? So, humanism believe that education is not only about academic achievement. It is also about developing the whole person. No? This includes emotional growth, what else? Social development, intellectual growth, confidence, no? And self-esteem. Okay, makita nyo dyan, no? Meron tayong triangle dyan. Self-actualization, esteem needs, and etc. Okay? So, teachers create supportive and learner-centered classrooms where students feel safe, respected, and motivated. So as shown in Maslow's hierarchy, of needs, so students learn best when their basic needs are first met. No? Only then can they reach self-actualization, which means achieving their full potential. So that's why as a teachers, hindi ka pwede na like may favoritism, no? So dapat you have to feel, kailangan ipaparamdam sa mga estudyante mo na they are belong. Okay? Kahit ano pa yung iba't iba pa rin ng mga ugali, iba-iba ng kultura, religion, you have to let them feel that they are belong. They're safe, they're respected. And kailangan din natin silang i-motivate. Okay? Now, we will discuss this further, the Maslow's hierarchy in our next discussion. Okay? Next, we have here the comparison of, these. So the different theories one goal, effective learning. You have here the theories of behaviorism, connectivism, constructivism, social learning, and humanism. When we say behaviorism, it focuses on behavior through stimulus and response. And when we say cognitivism, focuses on mental processes such as thinking and memory. And constructivism naman, it focuses on learning through experience and constructing knowledge. And then when we say social learning, the social learning theory focuses on observation, modeling, and imitation. And then finally, the humanism, this theory focuses on personal growth and self-actualization. Although these theories are different, they all have one common goal. And that goal is to improve the student learning. Okay? Understanding theories help us choose the right strategies to support every learners. Kasi kung hindi natin alam yung theories or hindi natin alam yung mga strategies kung paano natin maturuan ang mga estudyante, so wala, hindi tayo magiging effective teacher. Okay? Now, application in the classroom. So using, again, teachers may apply learning theories by using rewards and reinforcement, encouraging critical thinking, encourage critical thinking through cognitivism, and also provide hands-on and collaborative activities based on constructivism, and they demonstrate positive behavior according to social learning theory, and finally, they support student emotionally through humanism. So, as a teachers, we don't rely on just one theory. Okay, hindi lang pwede na isang theory lang tayo nagre-rely. Dapat lahat ng mga theory, dapat ina-adapt natin sa ating pagtuturo. Okay? Yan. Next, the key takeaways that take note that learning theories explains how students learn. Again, learning theories explains how students learn. And different learners require different teaching approaches. And no single learning theory is best for every situation. Again, take note, walang isang theory na compact siya sa lahat ng mga sitwasyon. Iba-iba ang mga klase ng mga estudyante. Iba-iba din ang approach na gagawin or gagampanan ng mga teacher at mga strategy ng kanilang pagtuturo. Okay? And then, effective teachers integrate multiple learning theories. Nowadays, more on technology. So that's why you have to integrate on the technology. Mga estudyante, merong mga games, online games na learning, educational online games. So, pwede mo i-integrate yun. And then, meron din ng mga estudyante na gusto nilang tumingin ng video or pictures, mga visual, meron din mga auditory. Okay? And many more. So that's why it's very important for you to know what types or kinds of students na meron ka. Okay? Para yung classroom engagement or yung mga estudyante engage sila sa activity na ibibigay mo. Okay? Hindi lang sila nakatulala. I have a question to everyone who are watching this video. Among the 5 learning theory that we discussed today, which do you think is the most effective in today's classroom? And most importantly, why do you think so? So take a moment to reflect on your answer because there is no single correct response. What matters most is how you justify your answer based on the needs of learners. So you can comment down below kung ano in a theory that you believe is the most effective in today's classroom and why. So thank you. That concludes our discussion on learning theories. Always remember that great teachers understand not only what to teach but also how students learn. So thanks for listening. Once again, this is Jeriah. And God bless and see you on the next episode.